Contemplation before chanting. The Sangha is invited to come back to our breathing so that the collective energy of mindfulness will bring us together as an organism. Going as a river with no separation. Let the whole Sangha breathe as one body, chant as one body, listen as one body, transcending the boundaries of the elusive self, liberating us from the superiority complex, the inferiority complex, and the equality complex.
With hearts established in mindfulness, we are truly present for sitting and walking meditation, and for reciting the sutras. May this practice center with its fourfold Sangha be supported by the three jewels and holy beings, well protected from the 8 misfortunes and the 3 paths of suffering. May parents, teachers, friends, and all beings within the 3 realms be filled with the most divine grace, and may it be found that in the world there is no place at war. May the winds be favorable, the rain seasonable, and the people's hearts at peace. May the practice of the noble community, diligent and steady, ascend the 10 bodhisattva stages with ease and energy. May the Sangha body live peacefully, fresh and full of joy, a refuge for all, offering happiness and insight. The wisdom of the awakened mind shines out like the full moon. The body of the awakened one is pure and clear as crystal. In the world the awakened one relieves bitterness and suffering. In every place the awakened mind reveals love and compassion. Namo Shakyamuni Buddhaya. 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 Namo Shakyamuni Buddhaya.
Good morning, dear Thai, dear community. Today is a Sunday, October 20, year 2019, and we are at Blue Cliff Monastery at the Big Togetherness Meditation Hall. Nowadays, it's a fall season, and the brother and sister have been really enjoying the beautiful scenery of all the yellow, orange leaf. About 3 weeks ago, after the US tour, some of the monks resting and traveling in the island of Hawaii. And it got the chance for me to observe life and see how it goes. And let me share you on the board so you can see more. I'm not very good drawer, but this is Asia, and I think this is Vietnam, and this is Australia, and this is North America and South America here. Hawaii is a very special place. It has about 7 islands. And the special thing is very isolated. It's about the distance here is 2,500 kilometers. In every continent. And it's a very isolated place. And we know through the tectonic plate, there is melting lava, magma, that been boiling in the center of the earth. And sometimes we have the crack through the tectonic plates, they come up the surface. But the earth is rotating. So every now and then it pop up, the magma come up the surface and it create one island. And 1 million, 2 million years later, it pop up, it create another island. So this is the very interesting ecology in the sense that it come from the middle ocean all the way up to the surface. At the beginning, there's no life. So the specific place we have been to is the island of Oahu. So from what I heard is it come up the surface around 3.5 million years ago. And the second island we come up with is Maui. And it come up about 1.7 million years ago. And the last island is Hawaii that we've been to. And it just come up around 400,000 years ago. 400,000 years ago. And my guess is we drove through the lava flow and the boulder field, which is 100 miles, and it was all deserted. The last eruption we know, the big, is about 80 years ago. And at some point, we see a little bit of clump of grass coming up, and it's all barren land. So my guess is life start around 100,000 years ago in the island of Hawaii. And everything that come there has to be imported from the mainland. That means the bird, the fish, the turtle, we'll be looking to swim with the turtle a little bit. So life live very isolated in that starting bubble of community. Then I'm start to think of the idea because one of my meditation a lot is I meditate on how human being become evil. Why do life creature want to harm other life creature? And this is very interesting because one of the brother observed in the island we've been, and he was saying that in the island we've been, there are no poisonous snake. There was no crocodile. There are no carnivorous animal that we know of, at least on land, unless it happened to be imported by man. So this is very interesting to observe, Then I thought of one of the famous thing is they call, in the biblical, they call the Garden of Eden. So from what I remember, they talk about the creation of light, Genesis. At the beginning, I think there was a tree. And somehow there was a snake. And there are Adam and Eve. Which is the ancestor of human being. And somehow there is an apple, fruit of knowledge. And the notion of good versus evil. So I'm started thinking, I'm a scientific person. I believe in science. It's hard for me to grasp the idea of it. But what if the story is just a metaphor, just to describe something? And to me, it describes very much this island of Hawaii. This is the last island we've been. Right now, underneath the surface, there's another island all the way at 2 miles down at the bottom ocean. They call Lohihi. And scientists say in about 1 million years, that island will come up to surface. And that will be the new Hawaii. Because the tectonic plate move, and whenever they create pressure, they push up on the surface, they have eruption, and they form the island. So here is the place of Eden. Life started there. And because it come at the later evolution, they imported creature, animal from other place. And who are the animal who can come? It's 2,500 kilometers, more than 2,000 miles. So mostly the bird come up first. And then the fish, the turtle, and the seed they bring. And then every living creature has to survive, has to procreate. So I've been talking about the 5 basic desires of living creature. So this is very common to all living creatures. The first thing is we want to survive and we want to live. And that including the plants that pop up the very first time after the seed being deposited into the bearing lava land. Of course, the bird wants to survive, the fish wants to survive, the turtle wants to survive, and the seed wants to survive too. So the seed can be brought by the bird or can float, and sometimes there's a big storm, they blow it, and then they float to the island. And the next thing they do is they want to continue. They want to procreate. And this is especially for mammal who live in a herd, in a group. They come up to the desire to be loved, to be understood, to be respected, to be recognized, and also the desire to love. A kind of a maternal instinct, kind of, to care for the young one. And we can love discriminatively, or we can love in a way of non-discriminatively. It's up to the mind how we think of. And the last desire is to know, to understand. I don't know whether the turtle think a lot because we don't speak the same language, but we know human being since the beginning of time has really tried to know why we are here, who are the creator, all the things. I thought about major in philosophy, and I would read a lot, but I think that I don't make a career out of being a philosopher, so somehow I ended up being in banking for a while, and now my profession is a monk, professional monk. So the loop we think of is really this thing about live, procreate, love, be loved. And it been going for a few million years. All creatures do that, human beings like that, including my ancestor. From what I know, we have Lucy, right? One of the mothers of humanity. At least we can prove scientifically the whole full specimen of skeleton of Lucy. It's about 6 million years ago. I think it's probably older, but we didn't find any more specimen that to prove it. And then we live our life maybe 50 years, maybe 80 years now. In the early day, life is harsh. It's difficult for people to live that long. And we live, we procreate, we want to be loved, we love, and then next generation, we do that. And only a few people start to think about, what if I can continue spiritually, that we don't need to have offspring? I think the Buddha is one of the person, Shakyamuni, and they inspire the whole next generation of monks and nuns who devote their life to the study and to the understanding and the basic nature of life. And the thing that good versus evil. So we got the chance to observe what happened in the island of Hawaii, which to my estimating, the first human being come to the island Hawaii around 40,000 years ago. That's very recent. 40,000 years ago. There was seafarer, sailor who sailed from the island of Tonga and Maui that dare to cross thousands of miles in the ocean. I think this is a not very clear proportion, but they are probably somewhere around here. And they just go by raft, by Hawaiian boat to go to populate it. And whenever they have an island where a barren land, there's no vegetation, they don't stop, they go to the next one. And they come to the island of Hawaii because there are some vegetation. By then, there are 30,000 years have been passing by, or 60,000 years, and there are enough population, vegetation, grass, trees, and so on. And they bring their own small domesticated animal, like rat, cat, pigs, so they can have a protein or something. And then they fish, of course, you know. So the three things to me, it made human being evil is greed, and hate, anger, and ignorance. Ignorance to the basic nature of human being, of life. In Vietnamese, it's tham sân si. Of course, we learn that, but if we can apply to watch the evolution of life through this lens, through this basic design, to see how it evolved, I think to me is very educational for me. Basically, creatures live and then they procreated, and I think to me the carnivorous animal used to be a scavenger. At some point, there's a lot of creatures, maybe on land, who live and they die. So the corpse lay there. So usually there are small insects, small worm or something, and then there are a few scavengers that start to eating the flesh of those animals. Then they develop the taste of blood, and slowly they evolve to become a carnivorous animal. But no such a thing exists in Hawaii, because they didn't have that evolution of life 145 million years ago. That's the area of the Cretaceous, the Jurassic area, and the dinosaurs ruled them until they got extinct about 65 million years ago. This is very interesting because in the island of Maui, we went to the place where they shot the movie Jurassic Park, and the vegetation is so wonderful. There are plenty of vegetation everywhere because it rained there all the time, and the soil of the island is very rich. And that's why the producer thought about shooting there. And when I walk around that vegetation, I keep thinking, well, there's some dinosaurs that come up because there are so much greenery for them to eat. They're such a big creature, they need to eat a lot of vegetation. But there is no dinosaur, there's no snake, there's no poisonous snake, there's no scorpion, because none of them were exported. Because it's early life, just like the Garden of Eden. And of course, the antidote to that is the three Dharma door, the three Dharma seal, which is a no self, the knowledge of no self, impermanence. Impermanent is no self in time, and no self is impermanent in space. Like a person can be at many places now with the email, electronic thing. We can have a presence in other place. Even the video is shooting them. And impermanence through life, of course, because the young man I came to the U.S. in 1975 is a different person than the banker I was around 1980s, and it's different from the novice monk I was in 2003, and different from the monks I am now. It kind of have the same similarity, but it's a different person. So I think when we understanding through the lens, and the other one, because when you understand the no self impermanent, we understand the interbeing, the interconnected of everything, that we are made of a non-self element. So here's a more summarize of what I've been sharing with you. Oahu was formed 3.5 million years ago, Maui 1.7 million years ago, and Hawaii was formed around 400,000 years ago. And the plants start to procreate or plant around maybe 200,000 years ago. And around 40,000 years ago, the first human being got imported. They come to the island, they skip the process of evolution of 6 million years. Of course, you know, the seeds of thinking, of behaving are buried in their ancestor who live in the mainland, who live in other continents, and they come for the first time to the island of Hawaii. So those are the sailors, the people from Samoa and from Tonga. They brought with them some dogs, some rats, some chicken, so they can farming or whatever. And then they have some seed they brought them, so they can farm. And they divide into a large family, parcel land, 200 people to 300 people in a very large family. It's like a community. Maybe it's about 10 family of 10 to 20 people, and with the many generation uncle and aunt, they can have like 200 or 300 people in each parcel of land that they divided. And they live happily ever after. I think to me, when the creature has enough food, they be content not to harm other people. They just eat what they need, and they just procreate. I've been observed the turtle because in our tradition, we highly respected and venerate the turtle. We call Linh Quy, which means sacred turtle. Because turtle can live very long and they can travel very far, thousands of miles. And the way they got their shell, they got protected, so they don't need to harm a lot of creature. They eat mostly coral. I saw the giant sea green turtle and also the hawk-bill sea turtle. Those are two prevalent turtle in Hawaii. And I swim with them, I saw that they are crunching the coral. Probably look for mineral or some other thing so they can form their shell. And I think they eat some jellyfish too. Jellyfish is a colony of cells that get together. So some of them get eaten, they regenerated, so that's not a big deal for them. And they don't have desire to harm other animals. I think many of the small fish are like that. There are some shark, but we haven't seen them yet. And shark evolved from the time of the dinosaurs. And the same thing for the loop of life. When you do like that, suddenly there's some lazy creature. Let's say, hey, I don't want to stay in line for the food. Why do I grab some other animal and kill them and eat it? That saved me like 20 hours munching vegetable, something like that. And that start maybe some kind of evil thought about it. And then they procreate, and they start some kind of evolution of life. And the thing is, I'm saying, but the thing is, human beings can think the same way. There are human beings who become very greedy. Of course, they care, they love their young one, their offspring. And then they want to protect them. They want to have a house. They want them to have a yacht. They want to have them a second house. And the greed is never enough. So they just keep harming, grabbing more and more. They develop their own system of thinking of discrimination, of hate. because your skin doesn't look like me, you have a darker skin. So they invent some kind of theory so that to help them to be safe, to be less working hard and so on, and to live on the work of other people. So this lack of thinking, and we can stop it, but if nobody helped them, they would go on with greed, with hate, and of ignorance, and discriminate against other people, not knowing that their self is made of the non-self element, and we can live in the community. And the early Hawaiian who were there, I think they were decent people. I think I haven't read enough of the archaeological record, and there were some sociologists who have been studied because they have some engraving on the stone, and they have culture for that. So around 10,000 years ago, there's another seafarer, that a different tribe. They come from the island of Tahiti and island of Marquesa. And again, it's somewhere in the, I think it's somewhere here maybe, different group of islands. So this island think that they are separate, different from the people from Samoa and from Tonga. They have fight. They dominate the early people from Tonga. They kill many of them. So the people from Tonga, Samoa, start to go up to the mountain to leave the place for them to live. The nice property are more near the beach, near the plain area, when they can grow things and you can fish or get some. So they chased the Samoa people up to the mountain, and around this time they brought some pigs, some other animal with them, the people from Tahiti and Marquesa. And the interesting thing is they create the taboo system. They call it the kapu system. And they call themselves the Ali, Ahali. And they're very restricted in the sense that if they caught the people from Tonga coming down to the plain, they would have a ceremony, they would kill them to their god. And they invent all kind of system. In Tahiti, they call taboo, but in island of Hawaii, they call kapu. And for about 300 years, 200 years, they impose a system. Only the chief can have the right to, and their family can have the right to live in a certain area near the beach, near and the women are not allowed to eat with men. If for some reason the wind come, the women will be killed. So that's why we have the word, the big kahuna. The kahuna is the big priest who imposed that kapu system. And they imported, so they form their own religion kind of thing. And that sounds familiar if you know about the history of Christianity, the Protestant, the Catholics, and all the things, you know. And many people, through the loop of life here, create some convenient system for them to dominate, to impose their will on other people, and to profit from the hard labor of other people. And then around 1,600, in the common area, the British settlers start to come. And the most famous is, of course, Captain Cook. He traveled a lot. And actually, the Portuguese and the Spanish came first. but they were defeated by the British. And they stole one of the map of the area from the Spanish. Then they know the existence of the Hawaii archipelago, and they start to come. Of course, they have very aggressive. They have a lot of weapon, cannon, and so on. They brought violence. They brought disease because smallpox, chickenpox, and all the things. And many of the native aborigines in the U.S. as well in the island of Hawaii die because of that. They don't have no defense from the diseases. And also, almost as evil as the disease, they brought the missionary, the priests, who imposed Christianity on the native. And they forced the conversion of everybody. And if at first they would kill, and they do we call it forced labor. They brought the horse, they brought the cow, they brought donkey, and the sheep. And you know about the horse, the cow, and the sheep. They will eat everything. So pretty soon there was no big tree anymore because they will eat all the young tree. And the thing start to be like a grass area kind of thing. So they create a lot of change in the ecology of the island. And the worst is also they start to divide land, and they create some kind of law that they can apportion the land. And at that time, King Kamehameha used the weapon from the British to dominate all the rest of the island. So they have like a cohabitation when the British control the King Kamehameha, and he rules all the rest of the island through his family. So it's kind of like a Kapu system too, in a modern way. And they set up plantation because they thought it was easy to plant sugar, pineapple, whatever, fruit or something. And then they need hard labor. So they forced the people in the island to become hard labor for them to plant. After a while, these people escape, run to the mountain, and then they start to invite the Asian people. That's the next generation. Japanese who went through different famine, poor peasant in Japan, Filipino, Chinese, and other Asian people who come. Basically, they think that there are people of the inferior race that they can take advantage of, so they ask them to become hard labor to help those plantations. The Asian people come for a while, but after 1 or 2 generations, they figured out they don't want to do hard labor all the time. So their offspring start to open business like laundry or restaurant or something like that in the town. And some of them even go to the university and have education, so they don't have to work hard labor anymore. So by the time we come, most of the plantation in Hawaii are dying. I think they were famous Kona coffee, and they plantation of coffee too. And the most famous is the macadamia nut, especially. And now there are only a few companies who still do it because of competition from other area. And then the British have some problem of dominating the island, so they asked around 1800 the American settler to come because America is close by, and by then the British Empire lose their power. So they talked into America to have annexation of the island of Hawaii into the U.S. And through the series of laws and so on, they start to take advantage. And also America think that Hawaii is a good place to have a military naval base complex. at the port. And the most famous port is Pearl Harbor. I was there, I visited Pearl Harbor, and then that makes sense because there were some inhabitants from Japan before, back with the time when they have a plantation here. So they start to send information to the island of Japan, and that's what they thought about. If we can destroy Pearl Harbor and all the Navy fleet of the America, then Japan can free to conquer the rest of Asia. And that's why the attack of Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941. And then they create the law that leading to dependency, because everything in the island, unless they produce themselves, they have to be imported. So life in Hawaii is a little bit more expensive because they cannot make rice, they don't have cooking oil, so they have to import, so everything else. Nowadays, we don't have plantation that much anymore, but we have what we call tourism, which is the next wave of immigration, the Japanese, the Chinese, and things. And I stay at my cousin, and she kind of like a latest import into the island Hawaii. She and her husband are doctor, and they decide to settle in 1975 in the island of Hawaii, Hilo. So she's been there like maybe 50 years or more now. She's like become a personal resident of Hawaii. And so that's a new wave of immigrant. So now to tie it up with the Dharma, I think our teacher gave me such a wonderful gift. Last Thursday, we listened to the Dharma talk on April 29, 2012. And Tay was talking about the Diamond Sutra. The Diamond Sutra is one of the very deep sutra that the Buddha was teaching. And in that, they talk about the ecology and the respect for life. And in the Diamond Sutra, it suggests to us to let go of 4 basic notions. The notion that we have a self, and that everything else is different from us. And the second notion, and we are a human being, and all the rest doesn't matter. They're not human. And the third notion is the notion of living being, and the inanimate object, we don't care. We take advantage, we use them. And the last notion is the notion of a lifespan. I have only 60 years, I have only 80 years. Let's make the most out of it. Let's grab everything I can for me and my family so I can enjoy life regardless of how other people was doing. So to offset that is also to have an insight of non-self. And to offset is to have the insight of human being is made of non-human being elements. We depend on other people. We are just one species among the 100,000 of species on Earth. Some of the species have been here longer than us. For example, the turtle. We can see the specimen of turtle 100 million years ago. We don't see specimen of human being 100 million years ago. So we are a very young creature in the creation of life. And the nice thing is when you look in the island of Hawaii, it's like a microcosmos of life. It's easy to observe life and the implication, the struggle, the evolution of them in a more simple, because otherwise if you study the history of life in the main continent, you need to read a lot more. It's more complicated. So life in Hawaii is very simple. And to me, I equate a lot of them to the Paradise Island, or sometimes we call the Garden of Eden. Of course, we don't have to go through all the, I'm not sure, maybe the apple maybe is somebody was telling Adam and Eve, it's, why you take advantage of the Samoan people and make them hard labor for you in a plantation of sugar cane so you can sell to Europe. And that's what the idea in the US, when the white settlers come to the US. They want to enjoy the fruit of the plantation of cotton and tobacco, but they don't want to work hard. So they have to find some hard labor. So they invent the system of slavery. In the old way, the Polynesian who were defeated by seafarer from Tonga and Tahiti, they make them into slaves. They make them work for them. And the same with the British when they come, they make this thing. And the Americans now are exploiting the Hawaiian to it. There was a lot of demonstration. Some of the Hawaii natives start to want to have their own governance and so on. And so I think to me, this is the instrument of ignorance and discrimination. Discrimination against living creature, animal, by human, because we think we are superior than other creature, and discrimination against ecology, plants, mineral, because we think that they don't have a consciousness. I think the famous composer or singer in Vietnam, Trịnh Công Sơn, he said that I have a famous sentence, làm sao mà biết sỏi đá không đau? How do you know whether the pebble or the rocks doesn't suffer or feel pain? And we see very much in the raw thing in 2018, the year before we come, we went to the Kilauea crater in the island of Hawaii. And around May 2018, there was a small eruption, a collapse of the whole Kilauea crater, and the whole lava flow came down to the sea. And we shot a video of that. We met a couple who lost their home due to the lava flow, and it just happened last year. And so when the lava go through, they would burn all the rocks and other things, and that way we have an idea that sometimes the inanimate object can hurt. In Hiroshima and Nagasaki, when they dropped the atomic bomb, after they clean up everything and the human being recover, they kill a lot of human beings, of course, and all the creature. They found out the rocks there in the garden and so on are radioactive. So human beings cannot live nearby. So they have to truck many of those rocks away somewhere to slowly decontaminate the area people live in order to grow rice, in order to grow vegetable, in order to have a tree. So the ecology is really, everything is interconnected, even the inanimate objects as a rock. And of course, the idea of the lifespan, that we have to grab everything because we're going to die, so let's enjoy life, let's not care about other people. So once we practice the no-self, impermanence, and interbeing, we know that it's possible to continue by other way. And we can create a lot of goodness for humanity. Say Mother Teresa, she been devoted, she doesn't have any children, on her own, but she was famous for caring for the destitute children or for the dying in India. She went there and she saw a lot of suffering, and even she know that they have malnutrition, they might die, but she want to care for them, to have them a decent human contact, love, the desire to love before they die. And then she created a follower, other nun to join her order. She went a lot opposition from the Christian church who didn't want her to do it. But she persuaded through Greer will to create her own order, and she invited the other nuns, other lay friends to help her. And that's a wonderful thing. And she gave a good legacy for her. Mahatma Gandhi also has children. But do you know what are the daughter, what are the son of Mahatma Gandhi? What did they do? Nobody don't remember anything. He is remembered for helping the independence of India and also to create a non-violence resistance and thing. And eventually they gained independence from India. So he was famous, he's a spiritual leader. And our teacher is such a spiritual leader. The Buddha Sakyamuni is such a spiritual leader. And they help to create, so it's very possible for us to continue not having children. My family, many of my brothers and sisters always pushing is, why don't you get married and have children? You know, that's your duty, you're supposed to do it, you know. All the mother always want their daughter to have children, just to make sure we continue. But there might be some other way. If you look at the turtle, in the sense that, I don't know whether they love their children or not, but the turtle is very migratory. They have a strange way, is they become pregnant, of course, and then they crawl up in the sand somewhere, some desert island. They dig a hole, and they drop about 300 eggs, 300 eggs. They bury the sand, and they just go away. They never return it. So for them, they don't have attachment. I'm not sure exactly. Maybe they communicate some other way, because about 300 eggs, maybe only 50 survive. Life is hard for the young turtle. They can pick up a bird, they can pick up all the fish and so on, before they can get to the sea by themselves and start to eat something so they can grow. And many of them die. So, but they make sure they have a lot of eggs, so that way they can survive. So, too many of the turtle, they don't have that desire to love and to be loved. When the mammal start to develop, they live in herd, they live in together, they start to carry their young in their belly, so they have a cuddle and other things. They start to have that kind of emotionality, thinking about how to be loved and how to love and things like that. But other creatures don't have that kind of needs. So I just want to share, because we're not having caught in the specific mind pattern that we can change it. So through the practice of no self, through the practice of impermanence, and to the practice of interbeing, and this is not just the notion. To have a notion of no self, impermanence, interbeing doesn't help. You need to have the insight, the direct experience of no self, of impermanence, of interbeing, in order to liberate yourself. And this is what the Buddha taught. And I learned this a lot. I repeat them, I think. But when I come to the island of Hawaii, I start to apply them. I say, wow, that's an interesting development of my understanding, of my insight into the Dharma seal, into the no self. And we will observe, to me, I invite the geologists, I invite the ethnobiologists, I invite the sociologists, I invite the psychologists to come and study life in Hawaii, because that's a very small microcosmos that can really understand the interaction of people, of living creature there. So to me, this is a wonderful experience being in Hawaii. For me, it's not just going to the beach, it's something else, because we share the Dharma, and among the Asian people who come there, actually now around 60 to 7% of the inhabitants of Hawaii are Asian. And they're mostly from Japan, because there were some kind of war and famine in Japan when the poor peasants are destitute and they have no other choice, so they start to immigrate to Hawaii. And along with them, some Filipino, some Chinese. We have a Chinatown in the island Hawaii. Also, we have a Chinatown in Honolulu, which is one of the big cities in Oahu Island. And they brought with them religion. They have a mission, what they call, because at that time the missionary, the Christian called themselves the missionary. So to compete with, they call them, they have. We went to a Lahana dojo. They call missionary, but actually there should be a temple because they're Buddhists, and they practice the Pure Land. And through the repetition of the same practice, year after years, their young one start to lose the religion. They go somewhere. They don't care about it anymore. So many of the people in Hawaii are looking for spirituality, and it's wonderful for us because we have some friends who live in the island and who live there, like Michael Donenfeld, who was here. So he invited us to come to teach the Dharma in a new way, so people can understand Buddhism more. And I think to me, we need some revival of spirituality in Hawaii. The native, they have their own culture, and they were not very happy with the forced Christianity on them. So nowadays they don't go to church, they don't go to temple. They have their own sacred place when they practice and things on. So to me, it's wonderful for able to share with you my experience in Hawaii and the development of life, development of thinking. It's like looking back again to the Garden of Eden, how they create and how the thinking mind start to thinking. And to me, if you take a shortcut, often people are always lazy to do something. They want to take a shortcut. They don't want to stay in life for the food. They just want to get the food somehow, in the evolution of life. And that creates a lot of thinking of evil thought, of hurting other species, of hurting human beings, and so on. So I think if we go back to the basic about the human nature and learn to know that we are interconnected to each other, everything we do affects everybody. So if we do something good, we do something kind, everybody profit. If we do something evil, we do something bad, everybody suffer. And then they create a chain of suffering. So through the teaching of Buddha, when the Four Noble Truths, when you change the suffering, the cause of suffering, and you start the path of happiness, of kindness, and you have a Noble Eightfold Path, which is the path leading to the cessation of suffering and creative happiness, then we're all set. And Buddhism is not that complicated. It's very basic and very simple and very easy to adapt through our practice of mindfulness, concentration, and insight. Thank you very much for your listening. Listen to the free sound of the bell.